Drag your laundry down First Avenue. Spend some time in your drugstore mind. It's not what you think, it's what you do. I've got a pair of socks I like better than you. I've got a pair of socks I like better than you.
Dry your laundry down Fifth Avenue. Spend some time in your drugstore mind. It's not what you think, it's what you do. I've got a pair of socks that I like better than you. It's not what you think, it's what you do. I've got a pair of socks that I like better than you. 'Cause I'm your monster.
Hi there, good evening everyone. This is Dari on WorldStreams Radio. Thank you to our listeners from all around the world for joining us tonight. If you'd like to learn more about WorldStreams Radio, visit our website at worldstreams.org. Our guest tonight is Dan Fante. Dan Fante is an American author and playwright. He's the son of acclaimed novelist John Fante. His books, Chump Change, Mooch, and Spitting Off Tall Buildings, comprise a trilogy based around Dan's hard-living alter ego, Bruno Dante. As well as novels and short stories, Dan is the author of 2 plays. The closer, The Boiler Room, described by the Los Angeles Times as ferociously profane, and Don Giovanni, about which 3 AM magazine said, for those who really want to know what's going on in postmodern American literature today, Don Giovanni should be essential reading. And we're very happy to have Dan with us tonight. Hi there, Saeed. Hello and welcome, Dan.
Thank you, Dari, and thank you for playing that introduction. I couldn't recognize the song at first, and then I said, "Oh my God, those are my lyrics."
Right.
Well, hello, Dari, and good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us, and good evening to you, Dan. Thank you for being with us tonight. I've been looking forward to this interview with you. Exactly this first piece of music that we just heard, First Avenue, Hollow Blue. While researching your biography and everything, I didn't run into anything that talked about you as very much a musician as well.
Well, it's interesting. That's an Italian group, and I've toured with them a couple of times, and I read my poetry. They do First Avenue, and then they play music too. So we've been all over Italy together. It's a lot of fun.
Wow. Well, from that it's called Hollow Blue. Well, what is that in reference to?
The name of the group, I'm not sure. The fellow who is the head of the group, Gianluca Maria Sirachi, is an Italian singer, and in the vein of a kind of a modern David Bowie. So he chose the name, and someday I'll ask him what it means.
Okay, well, Dan, you started writing very much in your 40s, and let's get your life somewhat in perspective as to why did you wait until your 40s?
Well, I went to a Christmas party in December of 1964, and I got home the first week of January in 1987.
Wow. 64, that's 21
22
years? 22 years later.
I was busy celebrating.
and that celebration, did that mean anything in your life, or was it, do you consider it as really wasted time?
Well, so
when you celebrate, do you really feel bad about it?
I survived it. No, I had, I was in a lot of trouble. I've been arrested many times, and I've been married a few times, and so in the course of drinking the way I drank on the streets of New York and Los Angeles, when all the fun was gone, I finally said, well, enough is enough. And then a couple of years after that, when I quit drinking, I realized I used to be a kind of a telemarketing guy, and I made a lot of money swindling people on the phone. And one morning I woke up and I couldn't lie to people anymore. And so I was broke after a couple of business adventures and misadventures, and I was living in the back bedroom of my mother's house, and she was giving me money for gasoline. And I found my father's. I must tell you, I've written a memoir, Dan Fante memoir, that should be out hopefully next year, or the end of this year, early next year. And in that,
looking forward
I talk
to
about
it.
this. Well, but I found one day I was really insane and suicidal and sober, what they call stark raving sober, and I found my father's typewriter and some typing paper, and I sat down and just so I wouldn't have to think, I wouldn't have to listen to my mind, I began to write, and Chump Change is what I wrote.
Wow. Well, for those of you who have just joined us, this is Saeed on WorldStreams Radio, and we are speaking with tonight's guest, Dan Fante, playwright and author. Now, Dan, you said you found your father's typewriter. Dan Fante is also the son of the late John Fante, who is very much a famous writer, and Dan is just very much followed in the footsteps of his father. So you were looking for. Was this after your father died, or was it?
Oh yes, yeah. It was. It was. He died at 83.
83, right?
This was 83, but when I found the typewriter was probably 1988 or 1989, right in there. And so anyway, I began to write my thoughts down, and they were terrible thoughts, and the writing was terrible. But
why do you think they were terrible?
It was just a kind of a rage and madness that I could the only outlet I had was to type. When I was typing, I wasn't angry, and so I spent my time at the typewriter, and I wrote. It took me about 6 months, and I wrote this novel, and I showed it to. I was in a creative writing class at Santa Monica College, and I showed it to my teacher, and he said, maybe he's a very, very bright guy and never wanted to injure the feelings of his students.
Right.
And he said, why don't you try changing it from third person to first person? Third person is Bob, saw the duck. Well, first person is I saw the duck.
I did it.
And I changed it, and I brought it back to him, and he said,